too?
Before I left, I was finally, leaving my area because I just written an email. I was trying to get all my stuff together. And Joe says, Jules, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. He's like, you be safe driving home, okay? I was like, I will. And I came around the corner to him and I said, can I give you a hug? He goes, yes, you can. Out of different people, I gave Joe a hug. Because he's the only person who understands or something, Yeah. He's like, are you okay? And I say, yeah, I'm fine. But, so, how was your day?
Fine.
Good.
Stuff going on, but we'll talk about that later.
So, John was there. He comes in, I'm on break, and he's sitting down beside me, and he's talking about some friend of his and stuff like that. Normal, just talking to somebody about stuff, right? And then I asked him, because we got our new printer in, our third mono printer. They're taking up some space. Michael had told me earlier that there's stuff in QC, but he's like, I don't really feel like trying to do it right now because stuff in the way will give him something extra to do. That's what we were thinking, right? So I asked John, I said, hey, is there anything in QC? He's like, I don't know, I'll go check. And he's like, oh, there is, but the techs are in the way. And I was like, well, you can do it back here, And he's like, okay, fine. Got all pissy, like normal, because you asked him to do something, right? Whatever. So he does it. He does all of them, just fine. Does his normal fucking pacing around, right? And so I'm finally doing this other job and stuff, and I was just printing off a copy, and I just put it on the scale, and I'm right here in the corner, and he's over here, near the entrance of the cubicle. Mike's on the other side. And he's telling us, he's like, I don't understand. Why do I have to be on second shift? I just don't understand. I think other people should be on second shift too. He's like, I have sacrificed my life to be on second shift. And it's the second time today he's talking about, I'm on second shift, He's talked about it before, but today's really bothered him, I guess. And he's told us before that his girlfriend broke up with him because of it, all this other stuff. His position was no longer available. That's what we were told and stuff like that. And he's just like, nice. Wish they were open. He didn't say anything about Mark. He didn't say anything, he just said, why do I have to have all this change, He's like, not like you guys ever had to change your schedule, change your shift or have stuff change around on you. And I said, no, I've just been switched around 3 different times, And he's like, well, how do you feel about that? I said, it's still my job. It's not a big deal. And Mike tried to calm him down too. He's like, hey, look, he goes, it's not up to us about what our shift is, it's what it is. And he's like, maybe we need to, go talk to go talk to Mark or something about it or somebody. And he's like, we can't do anything. He goes, well, I think we should switch shifts. That's what we should do.
No.
We're like, no. And he tells us, he goes, he's like, I didn't hear a thank you because I sacrificed my life to take second shift instead of you guys. I never got a thank you for that. And he walks away, and Mike
wasn't
and I
in either war.
Mike and I started looking at each other like, what the fuck, And he's like, he comes back, he's like, so you guys aren't going to thank me any? And he's like, why, Mike? Why don't you switch me? He's like, why don't we just have it 1 week I do second shift, another week you do second shift, and then another week Julie does second shift. It's not how it works.
No.
We're just like, no, it's not how it works. It's not up to us. And he's like, well, I think it should work just fine. That's what we should do. That's what we should do. He just kept getting louder and louder at us. And Mike says, well, he goes, I have things that I do, And he goes, well, I have things I want to do, but I can't. He's like, Julie,